Spanish, Boris. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutamente.
Okay, Gaby, ¿podemos empezar? Por favor. Ok, pues muchas gracias a todos por estar aquí en otro CIO Blog de la Asociación CIOs Mexicanos y Latam. Mi nombre es Víctor Ninomilla y bueno, en esta ocasión tengo el honor de presentar a Boris Bialek. Boris Bialek es Senior Director del equipo de Industry Solutions de MongoDB. Y el día de hoy el tema a tratar va a ser innovación centrado en datos, desde la sala de máquinas hasta la sala de exposición, es decir, el end-to-end de todo el viaje de los datos hasta el producto. Y bueno, déjenme decirles un poco la trayectoria de Boris, que es bastante completa. Boris, como lo había comentado, es director senior de soluciones industriales de MongoDB, experto de la industria de tecnologías de datos y reconocido orador y autor en varias partes del mundo. Antes de unirse a MongoDB, trabajó muchos años en firmas o empresas como FIS, IBM, Dell, Compaq Computers, y bueno, obtuvo su maestría en el Instituto de Tecnología de Karlsruhe, no sé si lo pronuncié bien, y bueno, pues démosle la bienvenida a nuestro invitado de honor. Boris, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate your time, and now the audience is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me today. Victor did a very good run through my resume already, so far I understand the Spanish. I would never dare to present a technical presentation in Spanish, but I'm cheating. I have Gabriela Price with me. Gabriela is our senior manager from Barcelona, and she's very good in Spanish and opposite to me. And then if you have questions, please ask anytime. Please as well ask intermediate. You don't need to wait for the end. And if something is where you completely disagree, it's absolutely okay to say, Boris, stop, this makes no sense, or Boris, this is junk. I'm happy to have that discussion. We are all here people who have seen a lot in the industry. And I always say I lost my hair over one database at a time. I've seen a lot of databases. And what I would like to talk today about is the change, how applications and IT changed from a solution angle, how the solution itself operates, to how the data centricity, where data become the center of a lot of things coming up, and then talk about some examples. Yes, I've actually practical examples. I admit it, this will be probably fun too. And really I call it the journey from legacy to data as a product. Because when we take a look, I love these 4 Ds of transformation, because when you talk to people, they talk all about the right side. Oh yeah, our company is full digital DNA. And then so what does this mean? Oh, we reorganized ourselves and call ourselves tribes and squads. The end. So when we take a look what transformation really means, it starts with the digitization of processes, from analog documents to processes to digital. The first step is underestimated. The best example in that one is the capability of interactive price tags in supermarkets. By now, we're working with companies like Hanshao, which is providing as well to AWS, where when you walk by in the supermarket, your cell phone and the tag of the soup aisle talks to you and says, hey, Victor, you had 2 soups from Campbell's on the list and you get 2 for 1, so why don't you buy 4? Those kind of things is where analog moves in a complete digital way, from paper signs to interactivity. And that means we need to think about the different way how digitalization works when we look into processes, the process thinking. Only after these 2 steps, you can think about transforming a business and building new value propositions on a fast speed, which leads to this, what I call the holy grail of digital DNA, where companies react flexible, do magic things. And I can tell you from everything I'm seeing, not many companies are on steps 3 and 4 for real. And this is a worldwide statement. When I talk to banks, we're actually on the left side. One of the biggest hobbies I have is asking people, how is your mortgage onboarding? How is your KYC process? At that point, people get in banks very, very nervous because there's so much paper involved into these processes always still. It's amazing. Or that banks ask here in Switzerland as well, oh yeah, I need your last 3 payslips. The fact that they every month get in their digital systems actually my pay information for the last, in my case, 7 years, makes it absolutely ridiculous to ask that. They have all the information. They have actually way more information. They can figuring out what raises did I get? How long am I employed in a company? But that is the part when we move to digitalization to digitalization. And when we take a look what a digital transformed enterprise's third level really means, the key part is in IT, I'm an old IT dude, obviously, it's about not being bound to legacy monoliths. One of the biggest questions I get regularly is, oh yeah, we are introducing a new product, but it may take 18 months. Says, wow, that's a long time, must be very complex. Yeah, we change one contract condition because they have to hardwire this into some COBOL or 6 code in the backend, and you feel the pain and they ask, so why does it take so long? Oh, our chief COBOL developer has just gotten triple bypass and it's a rehab for 6 months. This try to sound funny, but this is hard. This is not fun. This is serious business. And to be able to turn on a dime that you bring able new features in weeks instead of months. I went through that one myself when I moved at FIS. I had 28 products on SQL Server and on Oracle. And I have religious teams fighting it out one way or the other. Windows is better. No Oracle. No. .NET, Java. And then I said, let's use MongoDB. And that was kind of desperate at that time in 2015. The result was instead of 24 months release cycle, we went immediately within weeks to a 6 months release cycle. Instead of 4,000 tables and 2,000 views, we had one so-called collection out of documents. The auditors were absolutely stunned. That was, for me, my own kind of moment. After 30 years, I was able to normalize and denormalize any database you put in front of me. I could have probably denormalized myself into a data warehouse. And then unlock new value with data, what you have. I mentioned that one before with my onboarding mortgage example. But this is key. And the other part is free from vendor lock-in. If I talk to people today and they say, oh, I try to get rid of Microsoft, I use Azure. Well, that is a good answer. But are you using Azure services? Yes. So what happens if you want to use Google TensorFlow for AI and ML for your next best offer? Oh, that doesn't run on Azure? The end. So you need to have a technology, and this is true as well for MongoDB. MongoDB is not a lock-in. We can't afford it. We are open source. We are JSON-based. And if you don't like it, you have options and choices. I believe that our product is good. You like my face, you like Gabriela, and therefore you may one day buy our product or not. But independent of that one, you have always choices. And we know that. And that is the world we live in and continue. So the big question is how to get out of the hole. Interestingly enough, the competitive advantage for a lot of companies you're working with is really tied to how well you are able to use new workloads using data. And interesting enough, you cannot buy a competitive advantage off the shelf. One thing what I did in the early 90s was the introduction of SAP S3 in a lot of companies. At that time, we replaced a farm of very weird finance solutions with one single application, and company considered this a big step forward. When I talk today about companies about SAP for HANA, the first thing what they tell me is SAP BW, how do I get out of this? I need to bring different data sources together. This monolithic whatever doesn't work. You cannot buy it off the shelf, and you need to be able to drive sustainable innovation. Sustainable innovation means as well changing on a dime, changing on a week, and not change once every 12 months. When I talk to clients, specifically in the banking space, but as well insurance space, retail, healthcare, and people tell me, oh, we will try an update on the 24th of December because then we officially shut down for a week. If it fails, we have to wait for another year. That hurts. And when you talk to people about Oracle driver updates, which takes their change windows, that hurts. So interesting enough, and this is a Boston Consulting Group study, 70% of enterprise fail in achieving their digital transformation goals. It's not that they completely fail and have nothing. Only they don't achieve the targets they're hitting for. And the interesting part is it's always hard to work with data. And if you're honest, a lot of companies update the application front end from 3270 terminals to Windows to today's cell phones, but the data stays the same. And then more importantly, the way how data connect to applications is unchanged for 40 years. I had a discussion with a CIO of a very large banking group. He said, we change our mobile environments every 4 years. We change our computing frameworks every 10 years. So Spring Boot versus whatever. But we still run Oracle. What's wrong with me? And the wrong part is nothing, because this is what everybody always said. This is forever there. The same way, and I don't believe it will ever completely disappear. I don't believe the mainframe will forever completely disappear. So I believe the thing is by now overdue, but that's a different discussion. But there's so much code running. One of the largest Swiss banks here has a system called Payment 80. Guess what the number 80 stands for? The year. That was the introduction of something built in the 70s. And that is a core payment platform of a bank. So that scares. And when we take a look to this picture, this is a typical picture. You have apps, you have ETL, but this is already lying because this is the truth. This is what an environment looks today for one single line of business in a bank. And if somebody tells me, oh, we are much, much cleaner, at a certain point, you have all these people. So you have to get smarter in how you do things, and things need fundamentally to change. And the change core of this one is not going to the cloud. The cloud for me is something shift and lift, pain and no gain. If this thing was this picture before on premises and you just lift it all to the cloud, you have the same problems. So you need to have a different approach to data, how things happen. And what people then did was they add helpers, no SQL data stores, very limited capabilities, very niche, eventually consistent, no transaction safe. But it's like standing in front of a bicycle and the seat is not looking good. Let's put some tape on it. And then the front wire looks on, let's put some tape on it. You put a lot of tape around these systems. And at that time, you generate a cost, an internal cost. You have 6, 7 different security contexts. You have different development profiles. You have different functions. And now comes search. Everybody needs search. And funny enough, search is one of the new critical features in data. It's not about the classical search, where you did full text search. You want to be able to do the same thing. I call this a Googleization of your data with a Lucene index, without export, import, ETL. So it gets more expensive. And now I need mobile connectivity and mobile databases. How do I deal with these mobile databases? Put another HDB in, connect those. You see that my little arrow here on the left side slowly gets higher and higher. And then comes the data lake and the enterprise, the warehouse. Guess what happens? There's something very exciting now at this point. At this time, we take a McKinsey study. We estimate that banks on average convert just 5 to 10 cents for every dollar spent in additional business value. That means 90% or 90 cents on a dollar is maintenance. You can look that one up. I was a little bit stunned. And then I had some very quiet discussions at the Temenos customer forum with people. And they all basically, this is a dirty secret. That is a reality. Just keeping the systems really alive costs you a lot of money. So, and the interesting part is when you look of the average spend per industry over the times versus the run spend. So that means the budget goes up by 2%, but the run spend, the money you need to keep your system lights on fully functional, is 22%. And the change spend is 36% up. That means I spent more money in total, close to 60% after that study from McKinsey. And this is 4 years old, fair enough. I spent close to 60% just to keep the lights on. And something is wrong. And the core of everything, when you look at it, is data. And when in 2015, I was at that point to realize that my data structures were holding me back. At that point, I came a little bit religious about. And it's not one system. I'm a little bit unfair here, but you get the idea. We have not one or two. Remember the picture at the beginning. The most clients I talk to give me, for a banking organization, 2,000 different applications in average as core, 2,000. A retailer, 500. And when we look at those numbers, I was at the beginning stunned. This cannot be. There's one big SAP, and then there's a little bit of pieces on supply chain and truck management, cashier, point of sale management, loyalty programs, support, and it was running away with me. And when you add then the new modern apps for even mobile capabilities in supermarkets, then it becomes mind-boggling. Often each solution segment consists of 5 or 10 different applications with different databases and different ETL and all plugged together. So what is fundamentally going wrong with that picture at that time is the question. I take the liberty just to put some of my most beloved vendor logos in here. And I don't mean this negative, but an average bank has 25 different data products. 25. You have 3 to 5 different ETL tools in use. So leaving the security out and the complexities on the security, just think about what the cost is from vendor management, contract, procurement. And this is not even adding the developers up. That I need special development skills for each of those. I don't get economics of scale going, but I need so different functions. So we call that the data innovation recurring tax, or DIRT. I admit that word doesn't come from me. This word comes from marketing. I hope you enjoy it. But the real problem are these 4 items. You have a very fragmented developer experience, very fragmented. When you see, you have normally standardized on 2 or 3 frameworks, what you're utilizing in an organization. But on the data side, because of caching, key value stores, relational, I need geospatial, all that stuff, it becomes a complete disaster and fades out. If you have data like real-time data for trucks, meaning supply chain or other things, manufacturing, IoT, telco, call data records, I can go on through all industry, doesn't matter. The number of databases become mind-boggling. The dangerous part is it unbelievably reduced predictability with multiple operational and security models. It's amazing to hear people telling me my Redis cache does not have security, it's only a cache. When I heard that one the first time, I nearly fell off the chair. By now, I expect that people tell me they secure their backend data unbelievable tight and then use a Redis cache to keep the actual account balances and account information in a cached key value store for fast web access and mobile banking access. In other words, if somebody cracks your Redis cache, all your data open. Not good. And the data integration efforts, one of the biggest fun things I have for a large US bank is, oh, we want to build a new application. Yeah, let's add a database. What do we ETL? This is the first point where they start with. They're ETLing out of that thing. And then trying to get the data fit for purpose together transferred. I mean, Informatica makes a fortune out of these guys. But real-time capabilities, time to market, integration, single data source syncing, oh, this is out of the window. And then you have unnecessary data duplication, which I don't know how bad it is in Mexico, but by now in Europe, if you get caught with GDPR, you pay 4% out, and this is very, very nasty. So when we take a look to all of these things, something has to be done different. And that leads to data as a service syncing and data as a product syncing. I would like to point out these two factors are independent again from MongoDB. I believe we have the best answer, but we're not the only answer. So let's look at this a little bit more holistic, what this means. Data as a service implies that data are treated as a service, as a potential microservice, the same way like any other component, which implies that I need to have a complete different data syncing about the structures. Data as a product goes a step further. Some of you may have heard about the buzzword data mesh. Everybody's data meshing everything these days, but data mesh, the core part of it is that I have an owner over so-called data domains. And the data domain owner owns the publication, the SLAs, and the subscription between different departments. This has nothing to do with analytics, I would like to point out. There's a lot of vendors right now telling you, oh yeah, data mesh is a new architecture for analytics. Whenever somebody brings this one up, they don't understand. The fundamental change is thinking about people and process. How do I treat data in the company, in the corporation? How do I treat people accessing those data, working with data? I need data become a serviceable component, a product in itself, in the company. It's not about if I'm using MongoDB, Starburst, Snowflake, or choose whatever is on the market. So when we take a step backward, it's always good to take a step backward. That makes you look intelligent. When you take a step backward, we had in the 80s fixed field messaging. And it was static and it was readable. And then came the relational time since the 70s, 80s, more up. Everybody went into Oracle and SQL Server, and some even used my old employer DB2. And as a result, you have these lovely structures of hundreds of thousands of tables. When I see today that an SAP basis delivery, nothing customized, naked, is 140,000 tables. And then somebody says, oh yeah, let's do change management. People get hysteric. You cannot change weekly things on a system like that because you lost your control over your data. Then came JSON, and JSON came in the 2010s. And since 2018, since it's standardized, you see again all through the example of data in a payment infrastructure, it became back to the 80s, funny enough. The data become readable. I can afford to make it in that form because system performance is up there. It's dynamic. And when we look today, we're talking about an integral world for data. Data become driven by enrichment. A typical example is we built the loyalty system for a large retailer. And before we came in, they had 22 data sources. Throw 22 data sources into Hadoop, the Bermuda Triangle of data. Everything goes in, nothing comes out. Once a week, they were able to run a next best offer on Friday. So everybody got on Saturday an email, hey, cheap shampoo, want to buy? That was the feature of the week, the end. We changed that into a real-time environment on MongoDB, having per each consumer every sales receipt in the system. We know what they buy, what their preferences are, what their recurring products, which shop do they go to, which neighborhood, how's their behavior, who are they related to, do they shop for themselves, do they shop for somebody else, and so on. And out of that one, in real time, depending on the supplier bidding, they start next best offers to the consumers while in store. That means you stand at the cashier, your loyalty app says 44 points. You have now 2 seconds time to drive a reaction to that individual. That's how long he stays on that app, 2 seconds. So in 500 milliseconds, we delivered an end-to-end experience based on that shopping experience and the profile before. And out of that one, the database in total is under 50 milliseconds. You cannot do this with a relational structure, even if you want to. This enrichment of many data sources, this meshing together of data is impossible if you have to bring data out of different sources together in real time. So what is your counter argument? I have somebody pre-integrate. As soon as you pre-integrate, you're not real time with the data flow and react to it. So out of that one comes this whole concept. You need somebody who owns the data domain. In our case, what I just mentioned is it the data domain loyalty or customer record or customer 360, whatever you want to call it. You need somebody who owns that data set as an owner versus, oh yeah, I have 6 DBAs and 6 product managers. Already wrong. Yes, they are line of business people who have interests, but the data itself need to be managed as a product, which I offer to different companies, aka departments in my company. And to do that one right, you need a product owner who decides what is in the fundamental product, what do I keep and curate in what form in my product, what specialty formats do I provide to consumers on the subscribers producer discussion. So this is what happens now, and this becomes hot. Interestingly enough, all of that came out of COVID, because during COVID, people realized if they store data together in a consistent fashion, in a consistent environment, that leads to faster turnaround times, but then somebody needs to manage that data set, and that is not a DBA function. That is now underpinned. So these new data structures are great, but now we need a way to do with these data. Data as a service, data as a product. And that's where MACH, M-A-C-H. And this is not coming up from me, but this comes from people out of the retail space originally. Now it's into banking. And I just saw the big consultancies jumping onto the game. So maybe Gabriela can post the machalliance.org is the link to those guys. The important is to understand what these 4 acronyms actually stand for. The words are simple, microservices. Interesting enough, when I talk to people, everybody tells me, yeah, we are microservice. Well, everything is a microservice these days. And then you look what they have, they put APIs on top of existing data sources, crumbling around with data abstraction layers. That is not a consistent service experience. A service experience needs to feed one domain to a larger group of applications in a consistent manner. You need a polymorphism of data. That means the service serves each fit-for-purpose data to each application. If I can't do that, I have a major problem. I have the same problem what I had before, that I need to ETL somewhere to transform data. This word polymorph data structures is very important. That means that my Python machine learning app looks at the data, but visualizes them completely different than my .NET application, which is in the back office. And then there's a small Java applet on the mobile devices, all accessing the same data over the same APIs, but everybody sees the data in a different form. And that implies as well that I develop with the API idea in mind, that I have external, transparent, standardized APIs, which are now building each block as a function. So I can bring in a new product catalog. I can bring a next best offer function without having to think, now I need to build glue code between multiple things. I suggest you check out environments like Vercel, VERZEL, maybe Gabriela can send that one as well, or Uncork with a Q in the middle, or Commerce Tools, which is a bigger provider of different services. And that leads to the word cloud native. And cloud native is not cloud provider proprietary. Cloud native means it runs optimized for today's cloud understanding. I don't control the hardware, everything needs to be encrypted. I have to have the security, I need the replication, I need multiple cloud providers, and I still need to be able to run on premises. When people tell me they're using a cloud-only solution, and then I ask them, have you ever thought that your Amazon goes down? And they look at you, but it's Amazon. 1 week later, the thing went down. Outage. Can you afford 10 hours, no point of sale system? The answer is no. Can you afford 10 hours, no banking infrastructure? The answer is this is not. You need to have a different plan, either fallback on premises, multiple cloud providers. Nobody who runs a large organization can afford to lose their system. And last and not least, headless. And headless is not the chicken headless, but headless means that the application is encapsulated, that you can skin it. Skinning means I can put multiple subsidiaries on top with their own look and feel and their own behavioral environment. So I can run an MOX in Hong Kong and the regular Singapore full front end, and the regular standard chartered front end in Singapore, and in Europe a different version. Behind that one sits the same API first cloud native microservices architecture, headless driven, so the customization for the market is local, which means I can be able to localize these as well accordingly. Now, if we bring this all together, it looks like this. In the center is a data developer data platform. We have our operational plane and analytical plane. Whoa, we have no more our data warehouse. We may have a data warehouse for long-term, slow-moving data, but I am able to run real-time analytics on that platform. The microservices can access one or multiple domains. I have APIs to various streams, to various purposes. I have fit-for-purpose APIs into that environment. And not only the APIs are fit for purpose, I have as well the capabilities to run on premises or any cloud provider or any regional cloud provider. For example, obviously, we mention often Azure, AWS, Google. We run as well on OVH and others because we know regional needs matter. You cannot ignore regionality. And last and not least, you want to end up with applications built fit for purpose for these environments. And this is then the true data mesh, data as a product environment. So we believe we provide the first data platform which allows to do that. Now, that's our term. You can say, Boris, we see vendors every 2 weeks. Everybody says they are the only one. Fair enough. I can always suggest to try it out, and I will not go to all details here. That would be a little bit boring, but the core is our document model JSON. That allows you to move between the various platforms anytime and any way. But you need to think about different fit for purpose data. Remember how we talked about specialty databases for graph, for objects. One of the typical apps I deal with right now is truck fleet management. From supermarket A to B, rerouting while going because of local traffic conditions. On real time for the driver, specific for that fleet. That is smart. And you need geospatial, time series information, relationships, and graph in the same database. Or you can buy 5 databases with 5 developers. You get the idea. Dito, you cannot anymore differentiate between transactional, search, and analytical. Yes, you can bring in 3 different independent systems, but 3 different independent systems means 3 times the maintenance, 3 times the complexities. You have mobile apps, distributed apps, serverless apps. All these you want to deal with one environment, and that please resilient, elastic, global, multi-cloud, and secure. One of the best questions I normally get is, oh yeah, we're covering Latin America. I need for Peru, Colombia, and Brazil 3 in-country solutions. In each country, funny enough, is a cloud provider available. Funny enough, it's 3 different ones. I must have the capabilities to run over more than one cloud provider, or I have to build 3 different infrastructures. I want one. Think again, data is a product. There sits one person in the office who thinks and dreams and breathes data as one instance. That person's job is not to say, and now I need to build the same data structure, please, over 6 different jurisdictions. And you don't even have to go that far as Colombia. You can choose Canada, Finland, China. There are many countries which have by now data sovereignty conditions. If your platform doesn't support that, at that point you can stop right there. You will not end up with a standardized, simple platform which allows you to scale over multiple countries. And think again, the headless part. I can skin it in Brazil, I can skin it in Chile, and I skin it in Mexico. Or I can have even different skins for different environments and different markets between Mexico City and Cancun for the tourists. So if you really have to deal with those guys, don't go there. No, sorry, Victor, no laughing. I apologize. So when we take a look at this is what the ideas of a developer data platform in that context, that is the base fundament you need. And now I applied this all for a payment example. Payments is a very good example. You have merchants, you have payments, and you have points, loyalty. As you can see, a terminal can access the data right out of the data endpoint API of the merchant. Typical thing, I need merchant code information, but you need at the end to write a payment. The payment needs to be written with the events into the data domain payments, and I need to be able to do real-time fraud prevention, real-time, inline, not after the fact. And I use here feature space as an example. A lot of our clients build by now their own fraud detection systems. They're smart ways, or you have an endpoint credit check. Typical what I have in chains where they do in-store small credits, and how they connect at the end, you need your credit check and fraud prevention system. All these different functions are driven. These are 3 different data domains. So you have 3 different product owners for the product merchant, payments, and points. And that's all what you need. And you run the OLTP as well as the analytics out of the same data set and being able to do that one. And that is for me really the exciting part. And I can still connect my old Tableau system to the same database, or I can have a really up-to-date ad bidding platforms, consumer analytics connected. This is what data mesh makes. And this way of thinking, that picture is what I was admittedly now for half an hour driving towards, because this is what makes the data mesh a data as a product. The mesh up, which you clearly can see here, which is implemented through the APIs, that's the easy part. The domain thinking in your data is something what needs a little bit bigger starting point. And the interesting part is it's easy to start with. Choose one, choose 2 or 3 data sources, start from there. We have done it with a lot of large institutions. So this is an example from a mobile app environment. Zülke was the integrator. That's a Swiss company, admittedly. Typical example, mobile real-time interaction in connected and disconnected state. What is one of the biggest problems? You step into the elevator and the app resets and your lunch order is gone. I think we all have seen that before. Or you look at the balance and want to send some money and the app resets because I lost my connection. What we did in this example was building an environment which actually end-to-end collects And MongoDB Atlas on the right side manages synchronization with a mobile device and the interface to the legacy positioned holdings on the core banking platform. So in this part, MongoDB becomes actually a system of transaction for the infrastructure, while the system of record still exists on the right side. The implementation for this solution was 14 days. Before, the bank needed 5 days for posting onto the mobile phone. 5 days. After this one, 1 second, real time, 2 weeks of work. By now, we have a standard pattern for this. By now, we can do this in 5 minutes. And there's a very simple structure behind how we do that. You start on the left side with a legacy app, in this case, the mainframe. You extract the data in real time through CDC into Kafka or other topics, build out your data domains with access in your app, which either can write back to the legacy app or write back to the new domains, and then be a topic back into the legacy. Looks very simple, right? One of the largest banks in the world is using this one. Santander's PRI data infrastructure, what they call ADN 360 or Client 360 in short, is exactly that. We started out with mainframe legacy infrastructure. At that point, on the left side, we're using the old data sources, and you see on the really ultra left side, the old applications. We extract those data out of multiple data stores via ab initio and message queues. That was their choice. There are other options, as you saw. Extracting these data into a Confluent-based platform. Again, multiple option, can be Red Panda, can be other things, just into one to create the various events available and the various data structures, and feed them then into a MongoDB platform, which then is via Spring Boot accessing the application. Over time, the left part could have been switched off after all application moving to the right side. Sounds good? So the interesting part about the structure is everything was planned, and then came COVID. So within 4 weeks, a new mobile app had to be developed with complete much deeper functions than before, simply because the classical behavior of people going to branches, which is very common in Spain specifically. People go to their branch, get a coffee, talk. Now you can't. These things are closed. Nobody knows when they reopen, and they were closed for 6 months. So 2 small Scrum teams built a complete new environment with financial planning, payments by distance, budgeting tools. All these things were added every week out of the new data structures. This would have been impossible if they would have tried to get the data via kicks out of the old infrastructure into a caching layer into something new. Funny enough, this led to a large number of what I call vanity apps, partially subscription management. I talked about it. You saw the subscriptions from people where you see the stuff running over the account. You know exactly Netflix, Telemovie, or whatever these things are called, all this stuff, they can manage it for you. The companies pay money happily being listed in that app because it simplifies the payment process. Piggy bank, the Juja Digital, is basically very simple, that you save automatically. You set saving targets. And for every shopping you do, you say, okay, round it up to a full euro. And the delta between the price, what you should have paid, and the full price to the next full euro goes in your piggy bank. So it's gamification of savings. We're talking pennies. We're talking cents. We're not talking big money. And then people start collecting money onto this. Or family accounting, shared account collection, car sharing. Welcome to COVID days. People who never needed a car in Spain suddenly needs a car because services were not available. And then this led to some more cooler stuff, which I don't have all on here. This would be alone hours. Happy to do that discussion. Loan origination, full digital, out of your cell phone, no people meeting everybody. You can imagine where this came out of. Out of that one came a new risk engine over the same data set. And out of the same risk engine by now, we have a new consumer credit system in real time as well, which is a little bit like Klarna, but based on all the data, what Santander has about that consumer, they're able to use that one for the loan onboarding in Spain and the other Spain functionalities. So that was my Boris 45 minutes, exactly as requested. I hope everybody had fun so far. Now we can start discussing. I see a lot of stuff in the chat. Victor, Gabriela, anybody on the phone lines? Any questions? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Boris. Thank you very much for this interesting presentation, very interesting concepts. So we have a question from Juan Carlos, please. JC? No? Well, let's pass to Luis Angel.
Okay, thank you, Victor. Thank you, Boris. It was a very nice presentation, and actually it is very rich in terms of information. I wanted to ask you regarding the example you provided about from Santander Bank when you display the schema or the diagram. I didn't quite get it. Is that like a runtime data flow, or that was a one-time process from going from the old legacy applications and databases all the way to the new data model on MongoDB?
So this is very good. I was a little bit fast on that one, Luis. I apologize. The point is you need always to run them both in parallel for a while. If anybody tells you I can do cold turkey, switch off the backend of a bank and start tomorrow a new one, I would very carefully discuss with this gentleman to leave my building. So this is a process which run over 2 years. So you start building up first, basically you have the legacy, the purple part. Mm-hmm. Out of the purple part, you build the extract into the new data domains. That goes pretty fast. So that takes you normally 2-3 weeks for the first version. Because remember, we have JSON data, the data on the right side, you don't have the problem. You need to have your schema perfect immediately. You can still have evolutions on the data. You're not so hard bound. You start developing new apps. New functionality moves to the right side. KYC apps in this case, anything, update address over the website, all these lovely things which access the data, all the business relationship stuff, the typical personal identifiable informations, plus contract PCI data. Good. Step by step, more and more stuff moves to the right side. At one point, you start losing on the left side. Let me go to the next picture here. You have, for example, all the beneficiary functions are offloaded now in the front, nothing access anymore on the right side. You switch this off. Communication options. How does somebody wants to be contacted to? This looks simple, but remember, there are approvals, call center function. There's a lot of things behind communication options. So you bring this one down. The new call center app is using the standardized front ends. This one goes down, end. So you bring all the things down over time, and then you can switch this one off. And all what stays here is literally the lean core environment, the green stuff, and to the right. So it's a very, very equal flowing process. And now it depends on how big is the complex you're going after. That concept here is applied as a template now inside the bank for many different areas, for consumer credits to other areas inside their trade finance, their PagoNext subsidiary. So that is a standard pattern. And that's why we call it out by now as such. And this is not only utilized by Santander. This pattern is deployed worldwide. JPMC for Chase.com right now in North America is another good example. We're utilizing this with Boots, the retailer in UK. Gabriela, come on, give me some names from LATAM you worked with.
There's Santander, there's, I'm drawing a blank. I can think of a few and I'll add them to the chat.
Okay, that's better. So, but one which comes to mind, Banco Itaú in Brazil. So the pattern is always the same. You have legacy data. You need access to the legacy data through consistent, fast measure. We're talking here literally milliseconds delayed, which is totally enough for kind of personal information, account balances, which are normally get updated through end of day, or in a supermarket, even a cashier system. No cashier is faster than 5 milliseconds per scan, even the fastest one. So all these things happen in that time and in that flow. Does this answer the question?
Yes, yes, of course. But then the second half of my question is regarding the secondary memory volume or size. When we compare the old legacy and relational databases to these new models,
we are much smaller. Much smaller. We have compression normally in retail over 95%, banking 97%, manufacturing, so time series data and things alike is over 99% compression.
When you say compression, you mean like using some kind of compression technique, or you mean
it's direct built in the database? So when you look on the left side, you need 10 terabyte storage probably. We probably need less than 1.
Wow.
And this is stuff for you, so I can talk here as much as on. Try it out. You can utilize it online. There's the cloudmongodb.com, the free version. This is one of the first things what people try out. Is a compression really that good? And you, depending on the data type, naturally. So, but if you have typical retail data, payment data, banking data, manufacturing, supply chain, all these kind of things are pretty linear data, pretty standardized data sets, and the compression is huge.
Okay. Thank you very much, then, Boris.
Luis, if I may bring this up, then there's one more result. Because the data is so highly compressed, the number of IOPS becoming small. So in many cases, it's one IO operation. That's literally money. We see in many cases the IO operations going heavily down, and the infrastructure, which is one of the most costly things on the cloud providers, is IOPS. And they charge you for each read and write. And this is one of the reasons why MongoDB is so cost effective on the cloud, that we have this ultra high compression and the parallelism in the devices, that the number of reads and writes go down. That means we can offer rather cheap IOPS. Very simple.
That's great.
Thank you, Luis. Boris, I have a couple of questions for you. What to do with the legacy data? What I mean is, in the case of banks, as you may know, there's a myth that the legacy data cannot be migrated. For example, from some platforms such as AS400, very famous, right?
Oh, we do that regularly.
Really?
Seriously? Yeah.
Because in some slides that you are referring here, always point out to legacy, right? But is it possible to migrate, or we are losing, or we lost that battle forever?
I would need right now probably another hour just for the connectivity, but System IO, I-series is the latest term, so I call it still System 32 RPG2, but all of these data structures are actually record-based. The same, funny enough, with IMS data. People ask me the whole time, how can we move IMS? IMS and data records in the AS400 are records. The extraction of these records in record form into JSON is even faster than thinking about tables. Because in tables, you need to think about how to extract data. My typical example for tables is, by the way, a simple test. Use one application. You're reading data anyway. You have your data structures in memory. Add 2 lines of code. 1, connect to Mongo. 2, persist object. You don't even need to create a database. It does it for you. Just persist the object and look at it. This is how I started actually getting hooked on it, because I persisted a risk object for risk and treasury. And suddenly the thing looked like, this is what I want. And all what I didn't do before was thinking from the upside. Data people think always bottom up. I have my tables. How do I get from my tables to, but you don't need to think like that. The application developers have an object in mind, a line of business object. They can persist this one down. And that's the same as IMS. You can read an IMS data record, write it down, and everything is there in one set. It's quite funny.
Nice.
While we talk about that one, my most beloved latest target is MarkLogic and XML data. XML is one of the most painful things with XPath and XQuery. So, and we all probably went through this water of evil before in our lives. But banks, for example, and healthcare introduced a lot of this stuff. And now we're taking these XML structure, bring them straight over to MongoDB. All these standards are available today in JSON. So they're standard converted. It's not even us doing that. We just download the click open source standard converter for FixML, FPML, whatever, choose your poison retail standard, click, moved on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there's a
by the
need.
way, MarkLogic went private, stopped their cloud offering. You should talk to some banks who literally bank their farm on pharma. Pharma tracing is completely based on MarkLogic. Yes. And these guys literally come in their tears to me and says, how can we help? And I said, yeah, why don't we do a 2-week effort? And then look at me like I'm selling drugs, which I don't, for the record. So.
Yes, and they're still paying, for example, COBOL programmers or things like that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. The other question is, what is the biggest challenge in your experience transforming company and their data? Very, very brief. I mean, what is your biggest challenge?
People in their heads, including myself at that time.
All right.
People thinking about data. We were sitting for 4 weeks with architects in a room, beating each other up over our table structures. Instead of one-time talk to a developer, how developers thinks about data. This maybe sounds so simple, but it's so hard to admit that. Ask a developer how he would like the data, not how the JDBC driver to the data abstraction layer to the whatever built this out. No, reverse. Ask the developers how they want their data. And then it takes you 4 days to accept that everything what you learned about normalized 3NF and so on is not maybe the only thing. There are other things in life. And then comes the second part where you start looking into, oh, they're indexing. Oh, they're multi-indexing. Oh, I have search. Oh, I've materialized views. I have stored procedures. And suddenly the thing looks like a, guess what? Database. A database is a database. And you have the same questions to answer and to ask as in a relational system or else. And that is basically why I love Mongo, to be honest, personally, for my own fun. It's the best out of the relational world. The indexing, the structures, all the funny stuff, schema validation, hello, schema versioning, all that stuff we have. Templating is one side, but I don't have the structure that everything needs to be in a fixed table. I can add things on the fly, and I can have different people adding stuff without disturbing each other. 1 week. There's a class, if I may advertise here. We have a site called university.mongodb.com, which is free, by the way. We have millions of people using that by now. And there's a class called the M100. The M100 is the SQL experienced user moving to a more modern document-based world. I always say 1 bottle of wine, 4 hours, and you're good. In my days, it didn't exist when I started.
Okay. Very interesting answer. Thank you very much. So before leaving, I don't know if there's a question left from the audience, please. ¿Alguna pregunta de la audiencia que quisieran hacerle a Boris antes de irnos?
And I put my name and email again into the chat. So if people would like to afterwards follow up, have questions, please feel free to contact me anytime and or contact Gabriela. So her email is obviously gabriela.price@mongodb.com. She speaks Spanish. We have as well a very strong team, by the way, in Mexico and Latam by now. This is something which some people complain to me about several times, but it gets really, really good. We have a strong team based out of Mexico City. We have teams in Brazil and in Latam by now getting online. We have as well services people available in those regions. So it's not anymore that people have to come into the country, but we have actually localized support.
Muy bien. Thank you very much. So we have a recognition for your participation today. So I don't know, Gabby, if you can help me out giving the electronic recognition to Boris. So virtual, Boris, as you may know. So I don't know if it's possible to show.
Mm.
No?
I think it's It's already on the screen. Don't you see it?
No.
No, I don't.
No. We don't.
No problem.
That's
Honestly,
okay.
if you guys had some fun.
Here it is.
Oh, perfectamente. Muchas gracias.
It's a very humble recognition for your participation.
No, I like that. Can you send me that one as PDF?
Sure, of course.
I sent this to my boss. My boss always asks me what I'm doing for my life. So this is a very, very good recognition. Thank you so much. It's really appreciated. And seriously, I'm happy to come back to more specific subjects if you have specific items. I hope it was generic enough as well, some of the discussions, and not only MongoDB advertising, then it would have been really, really sad. I hope you guys got something out of the processes I described. Again, MongoDB is not the only choice. I believe it's a great choice, but everybody has to find their way.
Thank you very much, Boris. And we have Jose Alberto Mendez in online. So I don't know, Jose Alberto, if you want to share with us some
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. So first, thanks, Boris, Gabriela, for preparing such amazing presentation for CIOs and for such notice, short news. So, muchas gracias, Víctor, Rafael, Juan Carlos, por invitarnos otra vez a este evento. La verdad es que creo que estamos creando una sinergia muy interesante. El hecho de que pudiéramos traer hoy a Boris y que preparara esta presentación para todo el grupo de personas de CIOs que integran a CIOs, pues habla muy bien, ¿no?, de lo que estamos haciendo. No quiero obviamente ahora soltar un speech comercial, pero ahondando un poquito lo que comentaba Boris, ya somos más de 60 personas cubriendo LATAM, y eso es algo que obviamente no pudiéramos haber hecho sin la confianza de nuestros clientes. Estamos creciendo de manera acelerada. Mi nombre es Alberto Méndez. Para los que no me conocen, soy el director regional de MongoDB para LATAM. Y cualquier información, algo que quieran que nos enfoquemos en particular con alguna de los CIOs o de las empresas que representan, pues con mucho gusto pueden contactarnos, pedir la información a través de ti, Víctor, de Rafael, Juan Carlos, etcétera, y obviamente con mucho gusto vamos a estar ahí. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, José Alberto, por tus palabras. Bueno, pues damos por término la conferencia. Gracias, José Alberto, por la confianza. Esperamos hacer muchos más CIO blogs. Thank you very much, Boris, for your time, and Gabriela as well. Thank you very much, guys, for making possible. Y gracias a nuestra audiencia, pues muy buenas tardes a todos. Buenas noches por allá en Europa. Y muchas gracias. Nos vemos en el próximo CIO blog.